Hey everybody, Walking the Floor is made possible today with support from Fender Play. Have you or someone you know been looking to learn how to play the guitar? Well, my friends over at Fender recently introduced Fender Play, the complete learning platform from the most trusted name in guitar, offering on-demand guitar lessons through a video-based platform that's designed to help you play your favorite songs and learn key skills in minutes. For your free trial of Fender Play, visit fender.com/walkingthefloor. All right, let's get to the show.
Hey, this is Brent Cobb, and you're listening to Walking the Floor.
I'm walking the floor over you.
Walking the floor.
I'm walking the floor. Walking the floor over you.
Hola, senors and senoritas. This is Chris Shiflett, and yes, you are listening to another fine episode of Walking the Floor. What a crazy week it's been. Let me tell you about it. Finished up some Foo Fighter dates last week at Kaboo. Had an incredible surf with my buddies in Leucadia. Thank you, Rick DeVoe, for all that tuna fish. I just ate it last night. It was fantastic. Anyway, finished up the Foo shows Friday night. Woke up super early Saturday morning and flew out to Nashville, where I had a gig at Americana Fest. I was like the closing show of Americana Fest at 3rd and Lindsley. So I flew out there, landed that afternoon, jumped off the plane, got a rental car, drove to my hotel, threw my bag in there, shot over to Lightning 100, who was going to be broadcasting the show the next night live. So I went over there, did a quick interview, went and grabbed a sandwich, made it to rehearsal. We ran through the set a couple times with the whole crew for most everybody that played on my new record, which was super fun. And after playing my songs acoustic by myself for the last several months, what an incredible treat it was to get to play with all those folks, and it sounded unbelievable. So then the next day, I woke up, went over to get my guitars fixed from my man Tom Stradler over there at Carter Vintage. He tuned them all up for me, all killer, got them ready for the show. Just in time to go make sound check, where we ran through the set one more time, and then had an unbelievable show that night. All the whole crew, Jed and everybody from Americana Music Association, Americana Fest, were out. It seemed like they were all happy and relieved the week was over. It was, I'm sure, a very long week for them, but it was a nice way to end things. And I'd never been to Americana Fest, so I loved every minute of it. It was super, super fun. And I think that I don't know for sure, but I think maybe if you go to Lightning 100's website, you can find the broadcast. I know I did a couple Instagram stories and Facebook stories and stuff like that through the day. So if you want to check out what that sounded like with the crew out there, there is some stuff out there for you to listen to. Also, I should mention that we finally booked a show in Edmonton. Yes, I'm coming to Edmonton to the Starlight Temple Room on October 21st. Ticket links are on my website and probably on their website if you Google it. There's also, don't forget, Kansas City on October 11th at Knuckleheads. There are still some tickets left for that one, so go buy some tickets, and I'll see you in Kansas City and Edmonton. I think Detroit and Milwaukee are sold out. So if you didn't get your tickets, just come hang out on the sidewalk outside of the bar. That'll be fun. And I also got some dates with Paul Cauthen. I'm going to be supporting Paul Cauthen down in Texas in November. November 8th in Houston, November 10th in Dallas, November 15th in Austin, and I managed to squeeze in a show on November 9th in San Antonio, opening up for Mr. Dale Watson. So lots of shows in Texas in November, and all those ticket links are up on my website, so check it out, okay? Great. And again, I just wanted to give a big thanks to everybody over at Fender Play for making this episode of Walking the Floor nice and free for you, the listening public. Fender Play is, of course, the complete learning platform from the most trusted name in guitar, available on desktop and mobile, so you can learn anytime, anywhere. I know I just got set up with an account on Fender Play, and I am going to go dive into all their country honky-tonk lessons, and there's a ton of them. So check it out. Get your free trial of Fender Play at fender.com/walkingthefloor. And while we're at it, let's not forget our good friends at Zounds.com. Go to Zounds.com, where every order $599 and above is eligible for their exclusive 12-part payment plan with no application process, no interest charged, ever. And you just pay that first monthly installment and your gear ships immediately. And one last thing, support for Walking the Floor also comes from D'Addario. D'Addario, a fine maker of USA-made instrument strings and musical accessories, committed to sustainability through the Playback program, recycling over 1 million used instrument strings. For more information on the Playback program and how to help in its mission of reaching 2.5 million strings in 2018, please visit playback.daddario.com. Okay, woo! Let's get on over to today's interview. All right, so I've been trying to line up an interview with Brent Cobb for ages, probably since around the time that he put out his last record. But I think every time he's come through LA, I've been out of town, on the road or somewhere, and it's just never worked out until this past August, when he came through town on the Chris Stapleton, Marty Stewart tour, and they played down at the Forum, which was an absolutely amazing night. So much fun, such great music. And I managed to get down there early that day and sit down with Brent during Stapleton's soundcheck, actually, so you can hear that going on in the background while we're talking. But we sat in one of those little backstage rooms and had a really good chat. He plays a really cool acoustic version of his song King of Alabama off his latest record, Providence Canyon, which if you haven't listened to, you gotta go listen to. It's fantastic. Leans a little more country funk than the last one. We actually pick up this conversation talking about that. So this is Brent Cobb on Walking the Floor. You want to just jump right in?
Let's do it, man.
Let's just fucking do it. Okay, so we're sitting here backstage at the Forum, and you're on tour with Chris Stapleton, and your cousin is out here playing with him, and Marty Stewart. But I wanted to jump into, first off, talking about your new record and how it was different this time around. Like, what were the differences between making this one? Because it sounds different to me. It's got a different vibe to it than the last one. But what sort of influenced the making this record that changed it up?
We did the whole, Chris had us out last year as well, and so we did the whole tour last year. First time I've ever played venues that could hold 20,000 people, and just being out there and around that, I just wanted a little more energy in this record. And I'd been listening to a lot of this dude, Larry John Wilson, from Swainsboro, Georgia. Wilson. Yeah, dude, if you hadn't heard it, he's got these, did like 2 records in the early 70s that are super country funk based.
Right.
Like his lyrics are some of the countryest content I've ever heard. And
that's funny. I remember when I was out recording with Dave, a few months ago, he told me, before I'd heard your record, and he's like, we made a fucking country funk record.
That's what we've been trying to do. That's what we tried to do on Shine on Rainy Day also, but I think we'll continue to reach for the country funk album. I don't know if we've made it happen yet, but
what to you would be like the pinnacle of that? What's the holy grail of country funk? In my
opinion, there's a compilation disc called Country Funk from the early 70s, but there's this record from Delbert McClinton and Glenn Clark. It's called the Delbert and Glenn Sessions from 71 to 73.
Right.
Super hard to find. Amoeba has it, I know. But other than that,
I think that Dave actually sent me that.
He better have. And he better give me credit for that, too.
I don't think he did.
I know. Well, no. I know he didn't because I remember telling, right when he had moved to Nashville, we were riding around in the truck, and he wasn't even moved there, I don't think, yet. You know, I had already moved there. And I was like, man, check this out. Delbert McClinton and Glenn Clark Sessions. It's awesome. Played it for him. Well, then he moved to town like a year or two later. Get in the truck. He's like, man, you got to check this stuff out. Sturgill showed me. I was like, motherfucker. I showed you that.
Okay, so Dave also turned me on to that White Mansions record years ago. Who really turned him on to that then? Was that?
I think that was Shooter, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, sure, that would make sense. Yeah. I mean, when you go in to make a record, do you sort of have an overall vision for it?
Sort of. You know how it is. It's more, for me, it's more of an emotion. I don't know if it's a vision I don't know if I see a whole picture, you know, but I definitely have a themed emotion.
Well, it's funny because before we made the record that I just made with Dave, I went out to dinner with him, a few months prior to that, and he goes, I think for this record you need to play a Marshall JCM 800
totally
on the whole record. Like that's
gonna be the same.
Play humbuckers through it. He's like, play like gritty tone, but like it's like country rock, but like with the big guitars.
Yeah,
and then I was kind of like, whoa, because I kind of live in big guitar land. You know what I mean? So for me, like my solo stuff is usually a place to try things that I don't normally get to do, but we went with it, and I'm glad we did. But I didn't know if you went in with a similar sort of game plan.
Totally the way he does it. That's what he's always been so great at. It's like this time he's like, we need to get Mike Harris, who plays guitar with me, on the whole record. He needs to be on the whole record, and then that'll be, it's like that Dwight Yoakam and Pete Anderson thing.
Yeah.
And that's what we wanted to do with this album, is make it feel like, this is the band right here, man.
Sure, yeah. Who was the rhythm section on it?
It was Chris Powell and
and
Brian, then Mike came in and played electric on it.
And Charlie Worsham.
Charlie Worsham came in, man. Did you have Charlie on here a little while ago?
I haven't yet, but I plan on it.
He's great.
I will at some point.
They had never met one another. We just threw them in the studio the night that they, what you hear on there is them first meeting one another. Hadn't even said hey or anything.
Really?
Yeah, we wanted to scare the shit out of them, and then it was awesome. So.
That's amazing. Yeah. How does that work? Like as a solo artist, is that an awkward conversation with your band that I'm going to make this record and maybe one guy from the touring thing's coming and then not the whole team?
I look at it, in the Nashville way of things.
That's normal.
And traditionally the country music way of things, that's the way that it kind of it goes. And Dave is that guy now. And I've been working with Chris Powell and Brian Allen since 2006, since I first met Dave, like since we did our first record together.
Oh, those guys played on your first record?
Yeah.
Which, by the way, why is that not available in Spotify?
It will be again. I just didn't want to confuse anybody.
Right. Why? Is it stylistically different or?
I don't know. I think you can kind of, if you were to go back and get No Place Left to Leave, you would definitely hear some of the elements of what's happening now. My songwriting was there, but I was trying to sing like Shooter back in those days, which is like my first.
It was like before you had sort of found your voice.
I was like 18 years old. I didn't really. I think I had my voice, and then when I get in the studio to make a professional record, I was like, I gotta
sing like somebody else.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how the pros do it, man.
Yep.
Why was there such a big gap between that record and the first one you did with Dave?
I came out here and lived in LA for a short stint. I went back for a year and a half. I lived on Willoughby and Vine for 4 months.
Were you playing around town and kind of doing the
we
whole
had
thing?
a residency at the Mint, and I of course played the Viper Room. It was us. It was my band.
It
was me. It was me and Rowdy, Jason Cope, who plays with the Stillwoods now. Leroy would come sit in. Chris Powell played drums with us.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah.
Wow, so you do go way back with Chris.
Yeah. And so the ultimate goal is to use my band now on the next record.
Right.
I hope, but at the same time, I trust Dave and those guys so much, and these guys understand that too.
Right. So you came out here and made that first record, and then what? What were you doing between? Because it's like a 10-year gap or something like that.
When I came here, it was a little different for me. I'm from rural Southwest Georgia, population 1,609. I moved right in the middle of Hollywood. Decided. Not for me. I want to go to Nashville because I had met Luke Bryan in the meantime with that first record Dave and I did. And he's from.
How did you hook up with him? And was he successful? Was he like?
He was about to be. His first single had not quite been released yet, but he had that Billy Currington single. It was his first number one as a songwriter. So he was on the rise, especially.
So he was a songwriter too. Mm-hmm. That was how his end.
Yep, and especially in our area, because he's from like 45 minutes south of where I'm from in Georgia.
Oh, really?
So my old cover band I played in, Mile Marker 5, had opened some shows for him in Georgia, and he got a hold of that record, kept inviting me to come to Nashville, and I finally did, and all my heroes had sort of always staff wrote on Music Row, everybody that Willie Nelson, Roger Miller, Jerry Reed, all those folks. And so I always kind of entertained the thought of being able to do that someday. And then the opportunity presented itself, and so I made the move to Nashville in March of '08 and got a publishing deal and just started writing on the road every day, and that turned into me living in Nashville for 10 years. And
Throughout that time that you were working as a songwriter in Nashville on Music Row, were you also out playing shows and sort of trying to make it as a solo artist?
I was slightly. I put an EP out in 2012, and the year before that, I did the Willie Nelson Country Throwdown Tour as a songwriter, as a Bluebird songwriter. They had a little Bluebird tent set up. So I was touring, and then when we put that EP out, I was doing around 120 dates a year for 4 years.
Who put that record out?
That was my publishing company. It's Carnival Music Publishing, but they also have a record label side of it.
Okay.
And
is that like does the Nashville business side of things, the music industry side, like the writers to eventually become solo artists, or is that frowned upon, or is it?
I think
how's
they
that
do.
work?
I don't know if they know what they like. I don't know. And, the first question I ever got asked was, "So are you more of a writer or more of an artist?"
Right.
And I'm like,
Which answer is going to get me this publishing deal?
That's what I'm talking about. What's going to put some money in my pocket? And I didn't know how to answer that. I was like, well, I write them and I sing them, and I don't know. I guess I'm both. And
I'm always kind of fascinated by guys like you, or Chris Stapleton's a good example of this, or Kendall Marvel, guys who go out and play
Kendall.
more rootsy music, but have had success writing for mainstream country artists. I always wonder how that works. Like,
I wondered the same thing. I bet Willie Nelson was wondering that too. And he didn't have his own personal hit as him singing it till he was like mid-40s,
right?
But it's the same story over and over. I don't know why Music Row has such a hard time with singer-songwriters.
Right.
Artists. I don't
So
know.
you were getting out on the road that whole time.
Yeah.
Because I was going to ask you, like, how, it's silly to say, like, you're an emerging artist or a developing artist. I mean, in a sense you are, like, commercially or
Totally.
whatever, but like, you're also a veteran and been doing this for a long time.
I tell everybody, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but I say every night on stage, it's taken me about 12 years to get to the bottom, and I'm just glad to be here. So that's the mentality.
There's only one way to go.
That's it, man.
But, like, how does a young developing artist make a name for himself in these days? Like, do you get mainstream radio support at all, or is it all road? Is it all touring?
It's all touring, yeah. Well, luckily we got the Chris Stapleton tour. That helps a lot.
Sure.
But
I don't know. You have like a reputation. I read up on a few things about you, and they constantly kind of reference like Road Dog, Brent Cobb, that sort of thing.
I think that's it, though. I think the longer, it seems like the people who last the longest usually are who will get something after a while. I don't know if it'll all be worth it.
How has that affected your songwriting? Like how, like making records and being on the road a ton, how has that made your songwriting evolve? Like the process of songwriting?
I don't know, man. Being back on the road, it's easier definitely to write. My normal hours of creativity are between midnight and about 4 o'clock in the morning. So when I'm home with wife and kid, it's hard to work those hours, because no matter what, you got to be up 6 o'clock in the morning. So being on the road has kind of allowed me to do that a little more, just write naturally and not co-write everything,
Right. Do you do a lot of co-writes?
I did. We'll still have some folks come out on the road and do a little co-writing.
Do you have like a crew of guys that you're comfortable with that you
get your buddies that you love, and you don't mind calling assholes and
telling them their ideas stupid,
and or vice versa.
Right.
Yeah.
That's always a funny feeling in those rooms when you're the guy that's like, why don't we write a song about a fish with a horn in its head and the thing, and everybody just goes, what else you got?
The first time I ever wrote with Chris Stapleton, about 7 years ago, I walk in and I have an idea about a dog named Rastus. Never met Chris before, of course.
That was my grandpa's dog's name.
Rastus?
Well, it was Raspus.
Okay, that's close.
Yeah, close enough.
Well, I walk in and I have a cool little melody on the guitar, a little run, and I'm like, yeah, man, I got this idea about a dog named Rastus. And Chris looks at me and he's like, I don't know if I feel like writing a song about a dog today. Whatever you want, buddy.
Okay, how about this other one about my girlfriend?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you I've been asking people this question a lot lately because we've been touring so much this last year and change, and we have a lot of guys on our road crew play soccer, and I'm a soccer nut, and so on days off, that's when we go rent a pitch somewhere, and we get 10 or 20 guys together, and we have pickup games, you know, and that's sort of like my favorite thing to do on tour, to sort of stay sane.
Right.
Stay kind of active, to get your mind out of the sort of monotony of being on the road.
Right.
Do you have anything like that? Hobbies? Anything you do to sort of keep it together?
We started this year staying at KOAs instead of hotel rooms.
No shit.
Instead of parking lots. So yeah, I love fires, and I like throwing horseshoes.
Wow.
And I like to grill. So that's what we do. Any off days we have, we're at a KOA somewhere.
Really?
Yeah.
How do you sort of figure that out?
That guy right there, the tour,
Nice.
the tour manager.
You ever pull up and you're like, this one sucks?
Yeah, I
Get
mean,
the
there's
fuck
been
out of here.
for the most part,
because it's
man,
tough with camping. I find unless you have an inn, like you know the spot, and you know where the good spot, even within whatever the park you're in.
Yeah,
it can be tough. You can be like,
KOAs
oh, fuck, we're right next to the
have been
bathroom.
pretty consistent though. You know? Yeah, it's been really nice. If you're listening, KOA, we could use the help.
Let's back up a little bit. Like where you mentioned it a minute ago, but where did you grow up?
I grew up in Southwest Georgia, Ellaville, Georgia.
What's that close
3
to?
hours south of Atlanta. Columbus, Georgia.
And what was that like?
It was like Mayberry a little bit. You know, it really was.
And did you move back there recently? Did I
Yeah,
hear
we
that?
just moved back. We actually live in Cobb, Georgia now.
No shit.
Yeah, right down the road.
Is it
relation.
Cobb, Georgia, because of somebody in your family
No
like
relation.
200 years ago?
No, we've looked it up. You know,
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny.
no key to the city yet.
How is that moving back?
It's wonderful, man. I was only gone for 12 years, but my wife is from there and I'm from there, and we got the whole family's around, and they're with their daughter. And
I always thought we were going to move back to where my wife and I came from, which is about an hour and a half up north.
Right.
Up that way. And I always thought, before we had kids, we'd wind up back in our hometown, and then that didn't happen. Now my kids are like locked into school, so that's like I'm so jealous of that story.
Well, it's what a lot of folks wanted to escape where they're from. I was never like that. I always liked where I was from, and I always planned to be back down there someday if I could be.
Did you keep a connection like with friends and all that sort of thing?
Oh yeah. Well, that was also kind of what's nice about growing up a millennial, I guess you could say, is we were disconnected from the world. We're like the last generation to be disconnected from the whole world, but then we also came of age connected to the whole world.
Right.
And so we were able to, I keep in touch with my first best friend ever, still lives down there. And it was an easy move back.
Right. How old were you when you started playing?
I grew up
singing?
around it, but 12 was when I was really writing and playing.
You grew up around it, like in what way?
My dad plays. He still plays in a band. He always
he performs.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yeah, it was always like a secondary source of income in my
What kind of stuff?
his stuff was more like 50s and 60s rock and roll, and
Really?
he's a big Chuck Berry dude.
Yeah. So, like, what were you listening to as a young kid that made you want to pick up a guitar and
Chuck
sing?
Berry and Tom T. Hall, and I always loved Tom Petty, of course. The Drifters, all that old stuff. Yeah, he would. The first time I ever performed, I was 7 with him. There's this place used to be called the Silver Moon in Buena Vista, Georgia, and they had Chubby Checker came through, and George Jones and Doug Stone, and I met all these people because my dad's band would always be the house band I opened for them, and I just always grew up around it. You know, it's part of my makeup. I don't know how to do anything else.
Where was when did it hit you that, like, no, this is what I want to do? This is what I want my life to be.
I don't know. I've always felt like I would do it, but I didn't have any drive to leave either. You know,
Right.
So
you and Dave didn't know each other when you were real young, right?
Nope. His dad was the only Cobb that left Richland, Georgia, and never came back. So they moved to Savannah, and Dave's 12 years older than I am, or so.
Okay.
And he was. I mean, he and Shooter were the reason that that gave me a reason to finally go, man, I guess I could maybe do this for a living. I didn't know how to even start it.
Were you aware that he was off making records and,
Nope.
and playing music?
I had
and stuff?
no idea. No, not until his grandmother, my great aunt's funeral, and we're all musical in my family. Word gets around that Dave is this L.A. record producer, and so my little arrogant ass we're all standing around at his grandmother's funeral. This sounds awful, and I asked him, so I hear you're an L.A. record producer. What you produced, man? You know, and he said Shooter Jennings put the O back in country, and it floored me. And that's really what started it all. I gave him a little 6-song acoustic demo that he did not want to listen to because no one ever wants to listen to their cousin's demo that they get at a funeral.
Or anybody's demo, for that
You don't
matter,
really want to listen to demos,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, it's not fun. I didn't know that rule. And gave him a little demo, and 2 days later, I guess he was reluctant to hear it, and his wife talked him into it on the way to Atlanta. He was like, let's listen to your little cousin's demo.
Yeah.
And no, and then he finally did, and 2 days later, I was working up for a tree service crew, and I got off work. Me and my buddy, we got super stoned. The house phone rings, the old wall phone. Still living at my folks' house. I'm answering, it's Dave and Shooter, and they wanted to fly me out here and do a record, and that's really what. Until then, I didn't know how to pursue it.
Were you like, I fucking made it? I'm
Dude,
going to
I
Hollywood.
felt like I was. Yeah, I felt like William, the Rolling Stone kid journalist from Almost Famous.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember when Dave first told me about you, he referred to you as the redneck Paul Simon.
Shit.
Which I'm guessing you've probably heard before. But what would you call him?
Oh man, I'm not good at stuff like that. He's a
This is your chance to fucking claw it back, baby.
he's just a genius. I don't know any. He's Dave Cobb. He's amazing, man.
Does that ever get awkward, like making records with family and then also putting records out? You know, because you're on his label as well, right?
Yeah, a little. You know, sometimes.
Do you ever have to like ring him up, like the promo in Cincinnati was fucked up?
We,
you know, that
we
kind of
stay
shit?
creative. You know, there's
Right.
other people
Yeah,
to
yeah.
blame for that.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
You know, it's always been a creative relationship.
Yeah.
He's also an only child. You know, which kind of. I don't know if I trust only children and cousins who has so much control over my career. But
Oh, that's funny.
been good so far.
Yeah, only child. That
Yep.
says something.
You gotta watch him, man.
Yeah.
Now you know. See.
Do you want to play a song?
Sure. You got one you would like me to play, or just anything,
Hey,
whatever off the new
whatever
record?
you're feeling, man.
All right, cool.
Oh, before we do that, I got one. Well, you can grab your guitar, but I got one more question because I'm doing like a Fender's coming on as like a title sponsor for my podcast. Oh, yeah. So that'll be great. But they're doing this Fender Play app platform thing that's like online music lessons. So I just wanted to ask you about music lessons. Like,
Okay.
Were you a guy that took a lot of music lessons growing up? Was that a thing for you, or were you more self-taught?
No, it was more self-taught.
Okay.
My dad would just show me like a chord here and a chord there, and
Right.
tell me to work on it until I learned it, and he'd show me another one.
What about now? You ever jump in there?
I
You live in a
should.
place.
I
Well,
need
now you
to-
don't live in Nashville, but
Right.
living in Nashville for so long with such a ridiculous wealth of
I
talent
know.
there.
I wish I knew better theory and the language of music. I'd probably feel more comfortable about just jamming, you know? And
Right.
I get a little insecure.
That's funny you say that, because that is something that I really regret about my own sort of teenage years of playing. I came up at a time when, and I grew up in like a hippie town, so
Sure.
this hippie shit was all over the place. So that naturally you just fucking hated anything that reeked of patchouli in
Right.
any way.
Yeah.
And jamming very much fell into that category. So jamming was not part of our musical identity
yeah.
as kids at all.
Yeah.
And now I love to, like, I just went and sat in with Amanda Shires a couple nights ago and just had never heard the song.
That's
I was just like noodling leads on super clean tone, just like
Yeah,
channeling my inner
man.
Jerry Garcia. It was so killer.
Yes.
I never get to do that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's good. That's,
Well, on that end, let's hear you jam.
I'm going to try my best here.
Here, I'm going to move this over here to get your... If you want to intro it at all, like,
Yeah. Well, Brent Cobb here in the studio. Where we at? We're at the
Fabulous Forum.
the Fabulous Forum. That is right.
Former home of the Lakers.
That's right. I'm going to do a song called "The King of Alabama" about a good friend of mine named Wayne Mills. Wayne was a honky-tonk hero of sorts. He's no longer with us. He used to play for Alabama. He played for the Tide football, which is a big deal down south. I say this because there are many people probably worthy of the crown that is the King of Alabama, but he had all the boxes checked. People like Jamie Johnson used to open shows for Wayne Mills. Blake Shelton used to open shows for Wayne. He died the night of the George Jones tribute show in Nashville, and he left behind a 7-year-old son and a wife. And a couple of days after all this happened, I was thinking about his son growing up without his daddy, because my wife was pregnant with our daughter at the time. And I started writing this song, and I wound up finishing it with a guy I met through Wayne, Adam Hood, who's also a great artist. I don't know if you've heard of him, he writes for Dave. But anyway, when we got done writing it, I asked him what he'd think about maybe adding Wayne's son as a co-writer to it, because I never would have started writing this song had it not been for the thought of his son. And he thought it was a great idea, and we sent this song over to Wayne's widow and asked her permission. We didn't want to be insensitive or anything like that, but if they'd be into that, what would they think? And she loved it, and we got her permission, and so his son is now a third co-writer on this song. So any little bit that it might make, a third of it's going to go straight to them, to Wayne's old publishing company. Anyway,
That's amazing.
so here's King Alabama. Well, I didn't know him best, but he'd say we were friends. We both rode the highways on a song. So I'm writing this one here in memory of him, 'cause the King of Alabama has gone home. He was a man among men, the old school kind, had a great big heart, a laid-back mind. Let you hold his guitar if you broke a string. If you thought he looked country, ought to heard him sing. From Alabama, across the Rio Grande, he beat the blacktop down with the 5-piece band. Not because he loved it, he did that too, but he did it, man, 'cause that's what he was born to do. Well, some people calculate moves. He never had a thing to prove. He just let the wind take him where it may. Well, it's a damn shame the way things go. It's too bad we have to lose a good foe. But the King of Alabama has gone home. Gotta get that late night in Anaheim out of my throat this morning. Now nothing good ever happens after midnight, so the story goes. You can't trust nobody, it don't matter how close. It was a friend that took him from his family. I keep his chain in my pocket, his son in my prayers every stage I'm on. I can feel him there. Well, some people calculate moves. He never had a thing to prove. He just let the wind take him where it may. Well, it's a damn shame the way things go. It's too bad we have to lose a good foe. But the King of Alabama has gone home. Some people calculate moves. He never had a thing to prove. He just let the wind take him where it may. Say, honky tonk's a trick. Now get a guitar and grab your pick. Let them old tunes possess you and play. Well, it's a damn shame the way things go. It's too bad we have to lose a good foe. The king of Alabama, the king of Alabama, the king of Alabama has gone home. Oh, look at that beautiful ending right there.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
That's
Well,
fantastic.
Thanks for having me, man.
Oh, dude, thanks for. I'm glad we've been trying to do this for like a
For a
year.
while now. I don't know. I'm glad.
You heard the home fire ain't burning. Somebody's holding line.
All right, that was Brent Cobb on Walking the Floor. Make sure you get out there and listen to his latest album, Providence Canyon. He's probably on the road, probably coming to a town near you. Buy his tickets, buy his t-shirts, stream his music, and while you're at it, make sure you get on over to walkingthefloor.com, and I'm going to post a bunch of links so you can check out exactly what Brent Cobb is all about and what he's up to. Okay, thanks again to Fender Play for all their support. If any of you listeners are interested in learning to play guitar without the usual hurdles, check out a free trial by visiting fender.com/walkingthefloor. When you're done with that, make sure you get on over to the iTunes Store or Spotify or wherever it is you stream your podcast and listen to all the old episodes of Walking the Floor. They're all up there forever. And you can go to Spotify and follow our Walking the Floor playlist, the greatest playlist in the history of honky tonk. All right, that's all I got for this week. This is Chris Shiflett saying adios, amigos.